Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov gang. Tonight, our tough and intellectual and streetwise gang members are Dwight Schultz, a famous actor who played Murdoch on NBC's The A-Team. He's also a street fighter that is 32-0 in fight clubs in secret places in Los Angeles. Is that true, Dwight?
It certainly is.
And the one and only, backed by popular demand, Anne-Marie Murrell,
Hello.
a Politichek warrior and also the national director of the Politicheks.
That's right. Thank you very much.
And also backed by popular demand, Basil Hoffman, a prolific actor who's played in many acclaimed films, including The Artist, and he was raised in a Canadian home where his father forbid him to ever speak Canadian. Is this true?
That is correct, and I don't want to talk about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot to talk about today.
About?
But a few in-house matters first.
Please.
Basil, let's begin with that. You do not want to talk about being raised in Canada and not being allowed to speak Canadian in the home.
Yes.
Why?
In Texas. I wasn't allowed to speak Texan in the home either. So I had to speak American.
Okay.
Some people call it English.
Basil, under a minute, can you tell our fans, your fans and our viewers, a little bit about your book and what you've been doing lately?
Acting and how to be good at it, with a foreword by Sidney Pollack. I've been very fortunate in my business. I've done a lot of pictures and some acclaimed pictures, All the President's Men, Ordinary People, The Artist. And I teach acting a little bit, coach a little bit. And I wrote this book by request of a publisher who had seen my first book, which was called Cold Reading and How to Be Good at It. And I got Sidney Pollack's foreword because I had sent copies of the manuscript out to everybody I had worked with, who I mentioned in the book. I wanted to be sure that I wasn't offending anybody. And everybody approved of what I'd said, and I got a phone call one day from a lady who says, Basil Hoffman? I said, yes. She said, Sidney Pollack on the line.
Wow.
So I said, hello, Basil, Sidney. How are you, Sidney? Fine. How are you, Basil? Fine. Basil, I've read your manuscript, but I have a problem with part of it. And there was a little piece in it where I'd said something about Sidney. Sidney says, you know, Basil, I know I said it, but it sounds so bloody arrogant. Can you say it differently? I said, yeah, sure. So I said it differently. He finished reading the manuscript. He said, he had his secretary call me. She said, Sidney wants to give you a little something for the book, so that's my foreword. From Sidney Pollack.
Okay,
I
excellent.
have to ask Jamie a question.
Okay.
Do you know who Sidney Pollack is?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Sometimes he doesn't know stuff.
Because I'm
He's
from Canada.
Yeah.
But Basil, let's tell the biggest secret that we called each other and color coordinated before the show.
Yes, and it was really rude for you to not call Anne-Marie.
She's been left out now. Anne-Marie, a little bit of
rude.
our in-house
I know.
matters.
Yes.
Would you like to update us on the exciting things going on in your life professionally or even personally?
Yeah. On the 15th, May 15th, I'm going to be speaking at a Second Amendment rally at the Sacramento State Capitol. So anyone in California, please come out there. It's 11 to 2, I think. You can find it on Facebook, on my Facebook page.
Excellent. And Dwight Schultz, always something very exciting happening?
Say that again?
Is that your contribution?
That's my contribution.
Okay.
Yes. I'm here to work.
Maybe an impression?
No.
Never do one when
I
ask.
told you don't pay me. I don't do that.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, time to get to the serious issues of our time. And terrible tragedy this week, the Boston Massacre. Still a lot of uncertainty in the air. We don't know anything. But here's the key. When we look at the media, everybody's talking about let's not speculate, let's not speculate. But it's very interesting the speculation that is done by the left, and it's very interesting what the left is hoping for and not hoping for. One thing I want to introduce this with is it's interesting how Islam comes to your mind right away when this happens. And then the left is always saying, but it might not have been a Muslim, it might not have been a Muslim. But the key is whether this was jihad or not, jihad is not going to go away. Let's talk a little bit about the politics surrounding this horrible attack and the politics surrounding it. Basil, let's begin with you.
Well, Slate magazine, which we talked about earlier, about the prayer That
Oh,
was
the Salon magazine.
Yeah, oh, Salon.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
David Sirota, and he wrote an article, "Let's hope the Boston Marathon bomber is a white American."
Didn't he say he was praying for that?
Yes.
Yes, and it's the only time the left
Or-
ever prays.
There you go.
Okay.
Remarkably.
You know, for me, it's like I would rather think it was an Islamic jihadist, because we know for a fact that they hate us. That makes sense that they would want to blow up as many Americans as possible on the finish line of one of the biggest races in America. I'd rather think that than think that it was an American wanting to kill innocent Americans. Of course, anytime anything bad would happen, you think this is an enemy doing this to us. That's a natural
Absolutely.
thing to think.
1 second, I just want to point out the title of Daniel Greenfield's excellent, brilliant article on this was called "Praying for a White American Terrorist."
Right. Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure if David Sirota exactly said that, but the double standards are always clear, because even with the issues of praying, as we know, it's very interesting. The left can't stand Christians and Christian prayer, but they're completely okay with Sharia coming into the public schools. as
There were
well.
several
Dwight?
articles written
Yeah.
on the same. There was I forgot her name actually, but she was hoping it was a white man,
Yeah.
just a white man. But the politics immediately came out. I mean, Steny Hoyer said, "Oh, this is because of the sequester money." They've turned this into a political issue, hopefully to their benefit immediately, because they use emotion as a weapon. This is an emotional issue, and they need to they're scared to death that this will be two Middle Eastern men, and it will be tied to some radical Islamic sect, because they've wiped that out. They've taken it out of the FBI books. They've taken it out of the CIA. They've taken it out of the Associated Press. They've removed it, and they can't stop it. It came back to haunt them in Benghazi, and now the president came out and said exactly the same things he said after Benghazi, and they are scared to death that this will turn out to be exactly what first comes to our mind.
Yeah, but there's a tragedy in our culture in the sense of how the left controls the boundaries of discourse. And when we have Obama, he refers to it, this act, or whatever it is. But there's definitely in the left such a reluctance to admit that there is an adversarial culture or religion that is at war with us. And they're screaming it from the rooftops.
That's right.
Let me get to you, Basil, but I'll introduce it with this, and you take it in any way you'd like. But Pamela Geller made this statement. She said, "Can you imagine if I ever said, 'Let's hope the Boston Marathon bomber is a Muslim'?" I mean, the country would just be ablaze with criticism and calling her a bigot and a racist. But this individual, David Sirota at Salon, he can just hope that it's a white guy, because it's okay to hope that it's a white guy. What do you think about the double standards?
Well, it's okay because the Republicans have allowed it to be okay. And we have given them their language, whatever they choose. For instance, as Dwight mentioned, the sequester. Well, why don't we call it what it is? It's an Obama-quester.
Right?
I don't call it the sequester, I call it the Obama-quester.
That's good.
And that's what we should call it all the time,
All the time.
because it was his invention. So let's call it the Obama-quester. Affirmative action. Has that ever been affirmative for anybody? Every black person who is qualified to do something, who gets that position, is tainted by the fact that everybody thinks he probably got it or she probably got it because she got affirmative action to get it. And might be a brilliant person. How about the Affordable Health Care Act? You like that? Affordable for whom? Completely non-affordable. Affordable health care means your health care costs double. How about the alternative minimum tax? Anybody ever get under the alternative minimum tax? What's the alternative? If you don't pay it, federal prison? It's an absolute minimum tax. And my very favorite, if I may, assault weapons. They're defense weapons, aren't they? So why do all of the conservative Republican commentators on talk radio and on Fox News, why do they repeat assault weapon? Why do they give the left their language? Let's call them defense weapons. In 2012, 31,000 Americans were killed by firearms. 36,000 Americans were killed by motor vehicles. So why don't we call cars what they are? Assault vehicles.
No, excellent.
Let's call automobiles assault vehicles, and let's call the AR-15s and every handgun, let's call those defense weapons.
And let's call pressure cookers bombs.
That's right.
Start.
Well,
Well,
ladies
we're
and
gonna have to
gentlemen,
now.
but look, the Nazis figured this out. Mussolini figured it out. You control the culture. You control the language. And the left is doing the same thing. They control words, create words. And Republicans are just a failure at fighting political war on this level. Anne Marie, some of your thoughts on obviously also the double standards on the terrorism and what it could mean, but also, as Basil saying, the language that is used.
Yeah. I think this proves that evil people who want to kill people will kill people. They'll find a way. If they don't have guns, they'll use knives. If they don't have knives, they'll use a rock. They'll use bombs. They'll drive their car into something. Evil people who want to kill will kill. And evil has existed since the beginning of time. That's something that if the left accepts that, if they admit that there's evil in the world, that they're just bad people, that eliminates their entire agenda. They can't say that. They can't admit that this is evil, that there is evil in the world.
Except when it
that's out
comes
get
to
us.
right-wing evangelicals in the U.S.
Well, of
South,
course.
right, Dwight?
That's right. That's right. They have, I mean, as Basil said, and we've talked about this here, they have absconded with the language because they control the media and the university. They force us, and I don't know why we go along with it, to accept their new terminology. They change the definition of something, we all just follow, as if we have to, because if we don't, we'll be called a racist, or we'll be called a bigot. And that's what they do. They use racism and bigotry, and they throw it at us, and in Washington in particular, everyone. I mean, that's the worst thing you can be called, a bigot, or a racist. You don't want to be called that, and that's the weapon that they use. And look at what the president did with that poor woman whose soul was stripped out of her body and destroyed by her child being killed. And he put her on Saturday to give what was supposed to be his speech. This woman cried. You felt her emotion, but what was she asking for? What the president was doing? This stupid law that they were trying to pass, which would have done nothing to protect her child, which will do nothing to protect anybody who is a good person.
Wait, tell our viewers what law you're referring to.
Well, it was Feinstein's law against assault weapons, and the gun law that just was defeated today. This and the president used the death of children, props, as Ben Shapiro said when he hit Piers Morgan
did. They stand on the graves of the victims.
They stand on the graves of children, and emotion and heartstrings. They have no intellect. They understand. What was it with the old Stalin quote, or was it Lenin? You know, the death of 50,000 people is a statistic. The death of one is a tragedy. And that's what this man knows better than anything. He lies through his teeth. He won't tell anybody who he is, but he knows how to manipulate and demagogue an issue. He's great, and Republicans allow him to do it, and he gets off scot-free.
Now, Dwight, you seem to be beating around the bush a lot. Why don't you say what you really... Ladies and gentlemen, let's focus on Obama. Dwight, thank you very much for that. No, I don't think many people could say it better. Look at Obama, and he looks angry right now. But I have a feeling that he's not angry the way Bush was angry after 9/11. I think that Obama is angry that his narrative is now having trouble when things like this happen. One more thought. When he starts saying, we're going to deal with whoever did this, hello, buddy. What did you do after Benghazi? Nothing. Is the world even afraid that America's going to do anything with Obama talking, making threats like that? Basil, your overall thoughts on Obama and what you think is going through his mind and
for one thing, Barack Obama is not a good speaker. He's not even a good reader. He's a fair reporter of what he wants to report. But if you listen to his cadence, when Barack Obama speaks, every word he speaks has the same weight. It's like a man who learned English phonetically. It's really odd. I mean, people have wondered about his birth. I mean, what is his first language? Is it English? So, and it's very difficult for me to deal with that. But here's and
Let me interrupt for a minute. As a teacher of acting and as a great actor, sorry to interrupt, is Obama acting?
Is he acting? No, he's lying.
Okay.
And I think that it's different.
Okay.
He is being his true self. So I don't think that's acting.
Which is a liar.
He is being who he is,
Okay.
Which is a congenital liar.
Okay, we have to go. Please sum up quickly. Go ahead. You had another point?
Do I have an appointment? You have an appointment? You have to go?
Sorry, our first segment is coming to an end. I'm sorry if I'm being rude. Can you finish the point that you wanted to make?
I probably can. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton had a little narrative about Benghazi, and everybody bought it. And here is the narrative. They were not terrorists who killed Chris Stevens and those 3 other Americans.
That's right.
They were angry film critics who killed them.
That's exactly right.
And you know,
And people buy that?
Very good.
Only Democrats will buy that.
and you know, it's
Angry film
interesting.
critics.
I have to bring up a great point my mom made the other day on the phone. She said, "What movie are they going to bring up this time if it turns out to be jihadis?" Was that a good point by my mom?
Fabulous.
It
Fabulous.
was.
Yeah.
Your mom is
Marina
awesome.
Glazov, excellent point. Anne-Marie, departing words?
The only time Obama shows any emotion, even when he was talking about the bombing, it was deadpan. It was just monotone, no expression. But today, when he lost, he's like a petulant child. That's the only time you see any emotion in that man, is when he doesn't get his way.
And his
That's
narrative is
exactly-
not working because he cured the problem with Islam when he went and gave that Cairo speech.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
He's a narcissist,
Oh,
and
right.
narcissists don't take disappointment well.
Very profound ending to the first segment of the Glazov Gang. We'll be back in just a minute with the second segment with our 3 Titans. See you then.